Thanks, Mayor, Council. I just want to kind of briefly go through some items here tonight, just to provide some context. We have a lot of people here who haven't heard a lot of this, so I know Council has, but I'll try to go through it quickly and then touch on some specific items that have changed in the chapter since we had our last council workshop back in September. So tonight, on second reading, there are two ordinances, 2015-22 and 2015-23. They create two separate zoning chapters, the Downtown Plains Unit Development District and the Rockside Plains Unit Development District, and we'll just refer to them as the Downtown and Rockside PUDs. These chapters are simply enabling legislation. They enable an applicant to begin the development review process if certain acreage and geographic requirements are met. So I want to stress from the beginning that these two PUD chapters are simply just enabling legislation. They don't authorize a project. They just allow a development review process as described in the chapter to occur. But I think before we get into the details, it's important to remember why we're considering these PUDs in these two areas. The Economic Development Strategic Plan that was done a couple of years ago recommended the city look at land banking property in the Rockside Corridor and to undertake some physical planning efforts. The city's implemented both of these recommendations. The area plans provided some physical planning recommendations with a specific group of recommendations dealing with zoning. One of the zoning recommendations was to develop standalone planned unit development districts to enable development to occur in downtown and as well as the northwest quadrant of Rockside Road. I want to emphasize, regardless of your support of either of these efforts, I would hope most of everyone here would agree that the city's current development standards really are not enabling the development of projects that meet current demand. The city, through its development standards, is largely telling the development community to construct projects that adhere to an outdated paradigm. With these two pieces of PUD legislation, the city will be able to collaborate in a careful and controlled manner on mixed use, both vertical and horizontal, that meet with the emerging desire of empty nesters and young professionals for walkable, mixed-use projects that fit within the community's values. I want to quickly touch on some of the basics of PUD just for some background information. It's a common zoning tool that's used for development of single cohesive projects. It's typically developed under a single developer or entity. It allows for some flexibility and creativity in development. And it allows for the community to lock down a lot of the details of development early on in the process because a great portion of it is a negotiated process. And PUDs are intended for large-scale projects. They're not really well done in a parcel-by-parcel development. And it's important to note as well that zoning is really only one piece of the development process here. A development agreement between the city and any developer will establish other development-specific items that go beyond just simple zoning. How are we proposing to use PUDs here in Independence? PUDs will be restricted by both geography and as well as acreage. PUDs will not be allowed or considered in any other areas of the city of Independence. You can see on the maps, they're difficult to see from the back, but generally, we have a Rockside Road business district as defined in the area plans. The Rockside PUD is only permitted to be used with those acreage requirements of 30 acres within that geography. As a result of discussions we had in caucus, we'll be refining that to even be more restrictive on the geography to largely the northwest quadrant area of the map, which is this piece. In downtown, we proposed the downtown PUD to conform as well with the downtown business district as defined in the area plans. And as a result of discussions we had with council, we decided to again restrict the geographic area to what you see on the right board, which is largely the property that surrounds the city's former middle school downtown, and some of the city properties on the west side of Rexvold Road as well. I just want to quickly go through some of the changes that we've made in the PUD chapters since the last time we had a council workshop, and I'll kind of go through these quickly as you can see them in your track changes, and I'm sure you've already reviewed them. The PUD chapters, there's separate sections for both downtown and Rockside, but the language is really similar with unique standards as needed. The process and the submittal requirements are consistent between both chapters. Downtown includes a little bit more detail, as Rockside is more generalized to promote creativity. And I'll quickly kind of touch on some highlights of the downtown PUD and then wrap it up with the Rockside with a couple of items we've changed in that chapter. With the downtown and the use regulations, you'll see that we, again, restricted the residential options to single family and townhomes. In the scope, area, and density, we raised the required minimum acreage in the downtown PUD from 13 to 15 acres, which would require a developer to go propose beyond just the middle school, but incorporating some of the western city property on Rexvold Road. We also reduced the geographic area, which I talked about earlier. The land planning guidelines, we retitled critical mass, entitled it concentration, and softened some of the language. And we also changed some of the language with the housing choice section in F. We added some language to ensure the incorporation of meaningful open space that would have public access in these projects. The building height for residential, we put in 3 stories as the maximum and 35 feet. So 3 stories and 35 feet as the height. And just for reference, our current code for single-family homes in the city is 2.5 stories and 35 feet. And just to provide a little bit of context in that area of what 35 feet really means, the building where Doc Asaph has his eye practice, that building is 33 feet, so it gives you some context of what 35 feet is. Commercial, it's 3 stories and 50 feet. And again, to provide a little context, the church that sits on the southeast corner of Stone and Rexvold Road, the top of the church steeple is 62 feet. So you'll see that it's 12 feet below that point, just as a reference of what that actually would look like in that area. And we added section D in building heights to mirror our existing code with some exclusions to the building height department. And I briefly wanted to touch on, mostly for the benefit of those here in the audience, on the procedures and process steps of the PUD. It's rather lengthy, and it starts with a submittal of a PUD rezoning and preliminary development plan application that's reviewed by Planning Commission, and that recommendation from Planning Commission is then referred to council.
Jeremy, that submission is submitted by someone who's interested in developing property.
Right. The application process is initiated by a developer, someone outside of it. It's not a city-initiated process. Correct. Then City Council reviews the preliminary PUD plan and the zone change. If that is passed, at that point, the developer, if any charter conditions or requirements are met, the developer would have to fulfill that charter requirement at that point. So in the preliminary stage, they would have to go to the ballot if there was attached townhomes, condominiums, anything that would trigger a charter referendum process. If that process was successful, they would come back and submit their final PUD plan, which again would be reviewed by Planning Commission, who would make a recommendation to council, who would ultimately review and take action on that final PUD plan. So That process, in addition to the review of the sign package, the building materials by the Architectural Board of Review, and the landscaping plan by the city planner, landscape architect, you're looking at a 8 to 9 month process, which, we worked fairly hard, the best we could to ensure that the protections and review powers that council wanted were incorporated in here, but trying to find some efficiencies to reduce that period of time between versions. It also allows for provisions for staging development, so to amending the plan and then adding additional land to the PUD once it's been established. And we also added a provision that the development agreement be done by the time the final development plan is acted upon. So again, that's touching on the downtown. The Rockside portion, it is largely the same process, same submittal requirements. There's a unique purpose statement. The minimum area has been raised to 30 acres. It incorporates more flexible uses and heights and architectural features. And then following some comments from the Planning Commission, we will be looking to add some provisions for including lighting plans in both of these chapters, just because it makes sense to do that. So Mayor and Council, that was a quick, hopefully acceptable overview. I'm here if there's any questions as we hear comments, and Liz from McBride Bill Clarion is here, and of course Randy and his team from Fairmount.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, thank you, Liz. Thank you, Randy, for being here. The purpose is for you to get additional information so that you can determine the best strategy and course of action for this partnership, to see if it makes sense to you and how you best determine the best strategy going forward. Jeremy, if you could just do me a favor and outline by way of your finger the downtown area we're talking about.
Sure, man. It's the southern boundary is Stone Road, and then the eastern boundary is the edge of the city's middle school property, and then it jogs to the north, and it goes on the north side is that Valley View Drive, north of the shopping plaza, runs down Brecksville Road to the south, and then incorporates the commercial properties with frontage along Brecksville Road.
So basically, the land, if my memory serves, it's the middle school property. So there's a building on that, and it's the football field,
Correct.
the baseball field, and it's all that open land that we bought from the school district. Is that correct?
Right. It's the property with the school building, the track, the baseball field. The city owns what was a house along Stone Road that's since been raised, and then a piece behind the Kendall property. All of that equals just under 15 acres.
And that's all been primarily used, it's all open and could be used pretty quickly?
It is, yes.
Okay. Utilities are all available?
Correct. I mean, yeah.
Now, if you could go outline the property, the city's property and the proposed development area in the northwest quadrant.
Just the northwest quadrant?
Well, whatever area that you're talking about, the northwest quadrant, the city's property at 33 acres.
Yeah, I have a larger map here. This is a map of the northwest quadrant of Rockside Road. Here you'll see 77 and 480. This is Rockside coming in off the bottom of the map. This is Lombardo, which is in Seven Hills. These are the 3 restaurants, and the city owns approximately 33 acres in this section of what is total about 70 developable acres.
And that for generations ago, it was the Lombardo property. It was a Lombardo property previous to Duke or previous to Gallup Group. Quite reference, some of the people in the audience will know what the land I'm talking about by the name name of the party that owned it, not necessarily the location. It's the Lombardo property east of Lombardo Center Drive, correct?
I trust you.
Believe
I believe.
Mayor, was that farmland or what was that?
What's that?
Was that farmland at that?
It was farmland, and when Lombardo bought it, there was a change of grade in that area that was initiated because of the I-480 project. Before I-480 came in, there were extensive gullies and very, very irregular topography, and they had to export dirt in order to change the elevation, raise the elevation in the general vicinity of I-480 and I-77. And so they clear cut that entire area and excavated the entire area that the city owns today. The grade has been changed, and it's pretty much clear property. Minor amount, and regrowth. We've had some regrowth, but it's not like the gully to the right of it where West Creek is, where it's heavily densely populated with tree and vegetation. So that's our property. The property we're talking about is 33 acres. Okay? Thank you.
Hello. Hello. I'm just going to
You got to state your name and your address.
Colin Jetterzak, 7303 Hillside Road, Independence, Ohio. I'm just going to read a letter written by a old high school student here in Independence and an ex-Bio Society member opposing the Rockside reconstruction. Hello. I would like to bring your attention to why development on the Rockside area may be a bad plan. If there are some areas in which development cannot occur because of the unsuitable terrain, then why develop there? Disturbing the natural habitat of already endangered wetland organisms can be very harmful to the ecosystems in Independence as a whole. These organisms rely on each other. Even though they may not live in the same area, they need to be interbred to keep the population stable or growing. Disturbing this large amount of land may seem like it wouldn't be a big deal, but these creatures, once their habitat is disturbed, will relocate and may never come back. Habitat fragmentation is a growing concern today, and this project contributes to the problem. Once the Rockside area is developed, even with potential park areas, the species will not have enough habitat to build and sustain a shelter to reproduce, and also collect resources to live. They will either die or relocate. Once all the species are gone, the remaining species in the areas of deciduous forest and wetland will have less breeding options and may collapse the populations. Whole species could be wiped out because of this. Not only will organisms be affected, but also the groundwater resources could be affected. Once the development begins, groundwater storage that is important for rainwater collection will either be destroyed or greatly disturbed. This could cause flash flooding in other areas because of the lack of soil in the area due to disturbance. So not only would species have less room to live, their habitat may be destroyed because of the change in surface runoff. I hope you will take these concerns into consideration while you make the decision for this development. Sincerely, Darren Krokowski.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. Well, they can say what they want to say. I don't
Okay,
care. That's
okay, that's fine. You can go 5 minutes or 5 Chestnut Road, okay? And I'm going to be quoting from Dr. Seuss's Lorax. I don't think there's anything wrong with viewing the value of nature from the point of a child. At the far of town where the brittle grass grows and the wind smells slow and sour wind blows, and no winds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the gifted Lorax. And deep in the brittle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today where the Lorax once stood just as long as it could. Before somebody lifted the Lorax away, what was the Lorax and why was there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? From the far end of town where the brittle grass grows. And old Munster still lives there. Ask him, he knows. You won't see the bustler, don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum on top of the store. He lurks in his lurkum under the cold roof where he makes his own clothes out of Miff-Muffin roof. And on special date midnights in August, he peeks out of the shutters and sometimes he speaks. And tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He tells you perhaps if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a pail, and you have to toss him 15 cents in a nail. And the shell of a great-great-grandfather snail, then he puts up the pail, makes a most careful count to see if you paid him the proper amount. Then he hides what you paid him away in his snoopy and secret strange hole in his rootless glove. Then he grunts, I will call you by whisper mouth phone, for the secrets I tell you are for your ears alone. Now sloops the whisper mouth phone to your ear, and the old muscless whispers are not very clear, since they have to come down through a slurgly hose, and he sounds as if he had smallish bees up his nose. Now I tell you, he says, with his teeth sounding gray, how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back, was such a long, long time back, way back in the days when the grass was still green, and the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean. And the song of the Swami swans rang out in space. One morning I came to this glorious place, and I saw the trees, the trufula trees, the bright-colored tufts of the trufula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. And under the trees I saw brown barbaloots, frisking about in their barbaloot suits as they played in the shade and ate trufula fruits. From the rippleless pond came the comfortable sound of a fish humming while splashing around. But those trees, those trufula trees, all my life had been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew just what I'd do. I loaded my cart. In no time at all, I built a small shop, and then down a trufula tree with one chop. And with great skillful skill and with great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft and knitted a thneed. The instant I finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, I saw something pop out of the stump of the tree I chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe it, that's hard. I don't know if I can. He was a shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. Mister, he said, with a sawdusty sneeze, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues, and I'm asking you, sir, stop at the top of my lungs. He was very upset as he shouted at the top. What's that thing you've made out of my truffula truff? Look, Lorax, I said, there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree, I'm doing no harm. I am being quite useful. The thing is a thneed. A thneed's a fine something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat. But it has other uses far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains, or covers, or bicycle seats. Well, Lorax said, sir, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that full thneed. But the very next minute, I proved he was wrong. For just that minute, a chap came along, and he thought the thneed I had knitted was great. He happily bought it for 39.8. I laughed at the Lorax, you poor stupid guy. You never can tell me what some people will buy. I repeat, cried the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I'm busy, I'm told. Shut up, if you please. I rushed across the room, and in no time at all, built a radio phone. I put in a quick call. I called my brothers and uncles and aunts, and I said, listen here. Here's a wonderful chance for the old Bustler family to get money rich. Get over here fast. Take the north niche. Turn left at the Weehawken and sharp right at the south stitch. And in no time at all, in the factory I built, the whole Bustler family was working full tilt. We were knitting thneeds just busy as bees to the sound of the chopping of truffula trees. Then, oh baby, oh, how did my business grow? Now chopping one tree at a time was too slow. So I quickly invented my super axe hacker, which wrapped off 4 truffula trees at one smacker. We were making thneeds before time as fast as before, and at Lorax, he didn't show up anymore. By the next week, he knocked at my new office door. He snapped, I am the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown barbaloots who played in the shade in their barbaloot suits and happily lived eating trufula fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough trufula fruit to go around. And my poor barbaloots are getting the crummies because they have gas and no food in their tummies.
At some point, be disrespectful to everybody else.
Understand?
Keep going, if you disrespect.
Are you what time?
I think everyone here would like to hear it. You guys like to hear it continue? I think we'd like to hear it continue. Let's hear it.
Couple pages.
We'll take it for the record, we'll add it to the record. That's fair enough, isn't it? For the record, no, we'll take it.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bracco. I live on 6948 North Armwood Road, and I'm Drew Benos, and I'd like to read the letter for me.
Hi, I'm Drew Benos. I live on 6675 Oakwood Drive, and I'm reading a letter from Nick Linscott, who's a designer and architect. and a graduate student at KSU. Alright. To whom it may concern, I read over the plans for the development of several acres of land around the Rockside Plaza and the surrounding areas. To be honest, I was interested at first. New business opportunities are beneficial and can be easily accommodated considering the current success of the current area. However, upon reading the document about the planned development, I was shocked and surprised to see there was no mention of environmental studies, environmental impact analysis, or risk assessment with regard to the environment. I now seriously question the validity of these plans. They are completely ignorant to the imposing threat on wildlife in the area. Good project management would have done the right risk analysis for the areas concerned. Clearly, the administration responsible for organizing this is lacking in the common sense department. To have hired someone to organize this entire schematic who has left out critical parts in the plan, and what has the administration done? It has come to my attention that this isn't the first letter you're receiving on this matter. Clearly, there is a general consensus on the validity of this plan. Other residents of Independence, including myself, do not support this plan, and it should be stopped before it begins. What an embarrassment to the city it would be if these plans were carried out without a single thought to the environment. It's 2015, and we have the technology, personnel, and resources to consider the environment in any task we take on. So why aren't we?
Hello, I'm Rebecca Gindra, and I'm here today to represent Sam Reed, and this is his letter. In regard to
Hold on, time out.
Oh, sorry.
You need the address.
Okay, my address is
No, yeah, you need your address, thanks.
what?
Go ahead. Your address.
5706 East Dash.
Thank
In regard to the Rockside Road Area Plan, my name is Samuel Reed, and I am an environmental science student at The Ohio State University. I am also a resident of Independence, Ohio, and a Biology Society alumni. After reading through the Rockside Road Area Plan, I am concerned that we are investing in unneeded infrastructure at the detriment of our surrounding environment. As the plan only briefly mentions how there are proximal wetlands, Independence would potentially and most likely be harming an ecosystem that has many tangible benefits, such as water purification and flood mitigation. The new infrastructure would also be upslope of these wetlands. Therefore, runoff of harmful chemicals would flow directly into the ecosystem and harm the wildlife within. Besides the science behind preserving wetlands, they are also heavily protected and regulated by the EPA and the federal government, which concerned citizens will make sure are followed. Beyond my permanent residence in Independence, I'm not only a concerned college student. I have an extensive background in limnology, the study of freshwater systems, and sustainability. I have had paid internships with both the Northeast Ohio Sewer District's Environmental and Maintenance Services Center at the West Creek Metro Park, both of which will most likely be concerned and push back against this plan. At Ohio State, I am the Director of Sustainability within student government, in which I represent all students on campus in terms of environmental policy decisions. This has allowed me to determine OSU policy here on campus, a nationwide environmental policy in the White House. I have a voice in all major sustainability decisions on campus, and I understand the different economic benefits and drawbacks of development. Thus, I will not advocate for the Rockside Road Area Plan, as it further reduces Independence' already limited green space and could harm an extremely important ecosystem. I learned to love the environment and understand its importance for Northeast Ohio's ecosystems, so further degradation does not sit well with me on both a scientific and emotional level. This plan does not bode well upon closer inspection, and I will do anything in my power to make sure that not only the local ecosystems of Independence, Ohio are not harmed, but to make sure my grandkids are able to experience the same lands that I grew to love and have changed the entire course of my life. Sincerely, Samuel Reed.
you. Can you leave that out again?
My name is Elizabeth Arlesic. I live at 6606 Great Oaks Parkway. I will be reading a letter on behalf of an Independence alumni and Biology Society member, Marissa Ardrum. To whom it may concern. Poet, essayist, lecturer, and environmental activist Gary Snyder once said, "Nature is not a place to visit, it is home." This sentiment could not be more alive in any community than it is here in Independence. Kids, teens, and adults alike all adore spending time in our beautiful woods. The demolition of the woods down by West Creek and the Cuyahoga for further development would be a great loss for our city. These woods add so much to the community, just as they are, and would be sorely missed for a plethora of reasons. Forests are an important part of any community, both socially and ecologically speaking. In addition to their sentimental and aesthetic value, forests provide indispensable resources. Not only are these forests home to countless living organisms from foxes to ferns, forests provide us humans with invaluable resources. Forests prevent soil erosion, protect the watershed, and generate oxygen. Unfortunately, however, according to the USDA Forests of Ohio Resource Update in 2013, Ohio is only about 31% forest today. Originally, the state was approximately 95% forest, as estimated by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Forestry. The destruction of forests is in no way a benefit to the human race. Its short-term monetary benefits are outweighed by the long-term part it will have on our entire environment. A new office building is a poor legacy to leave behind, when it will inevitably be obsolete in a few years. If the marbles of Rome fell, how on earth would a few flimsy, mass-produced homes and buildings stand the test of time and human fickleness? It would be far better for your swan song to be a lasting and beautiful natural wonder, rather than a conglomeration of man-made fabrications that will be eyesores by the next generation. In addition to the legacy that we plan to leave for upcoming generations, we must consider what kind of experiences these young people will have in the city we leave behind. If you grow up in a family like mine that has been in independence for generations, chances are you've heard stories from relatives about foolhardy adventures they had out in the woods around the city. Adventures upcoming generations will never have the opportunity to experience if the woods are destroyed. Personally, I grew up in a very outdoor-oriented family. I knew more about the different animals living around my home as a kid than I did about the Disney princesses. Going into high school as a teen, I thought this attitude might be a little weird, but it was far from it. So many of the people I met at our local school loved spending time out in nature just as much as I did. It was hardly uncommon to receive a text about an early Saturday morning hike and to see so many of my friends bright and early waiting at the foot of Stone Road to head out to the woods. We have so many memories out in those woods, from skipping rocks across the river to seeing how high up a tree we could climb. It's an adventure and an escape for us. It seems cruel to tear away the chains from my younger siblings and all those who come after us to get to know the woods the way we have. These woods have given us a chance to learn and grow and bond like little else has. We love the woods just as all the generations before us have, and just as I hope all those who come after us will. Far more than just a pile of sticks and leaves, this forest is people's childhoods, memories, inspiration. Not only do these woods enrich our lives, they are a necessity that is quickly fading. These woods should be spared from the acts of human development because they are both functional and cherished. Progress is inevitable. Building and rebuilding is a necessity in this day and age. However, where and how we choose to build is a choice. The land down by the Cuyahoga in West Creek adds so much to the community. It brings beauty and joy and excitement to all who enter. We not only need these woods ecologically to survive, we need them as a community to continue to foster a love of nature and inspire beauty and thought. As Gary Snyder said, these woods are not just a location, an occasional refuge. They are with us always in the air we breathe. They are with us in the thoughts we think. They are home. Sincerely, Marissa Arquette.
My name is Rebecca Kula. I live at 6620 Daisy Avenue, and I'm reading on behalf of Claire Darris. To whom it may concern. My name is Claire Darris. I am a freshman biological science major at Ohio University, and I have lived in Independence most of my life. I attended Independence High School, and throughout my time there, I was active in our biology society and being vice president of the club my senior year. To say that I enjoy being out in nature would be a tremendous understatement. Some of my favorite memories from growing up have been with my friends out exploring Independence's beautiful woods. I know for a fact that I am not alone in this love of our forest. Like I said, there's an entire society at our local high school of tree-hugging, nature-loving young people. However, it's not just biology fanatics that love our woods. From our families who have grown up here, to the teachers that simply visited the land lab on field trips, all who experience any part of Independence's woods walk away with an appreciation for the vivacity. So many of these gorgeous, wild, uninhabited areas around us have already been sacrificed to the vices of man. We must work to preserve what beauty remains within our city. The development of the land down by West Creek and the Cuyahoga would not only mean the destruction of a thriving ecosystem and animal habitat, it would be the demolition of people's memories and opportunities to learn about and appreciate the natural blessings of our city. Progress is inevitable these days. That much is undeniable. However, progress at the price of further destruction to an already maimed ecosystem seems cruel and unnecessary. As our biology society motto states, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, then nothing is going to get better. It's not. We do care a lot, all of us who have experienced Independence's woods hold them very dearly, and we would be incredibly grateful if you too took the time to appreciate their merit and consider sparing them. Sincerely, Claire Darris.
My name is Kenny Kwan. I live at 6668 Beverly May Drive, and I am representing Jonathan Wajanski. To the members of Independence City Council, My name is Jonathan Wygonsky. I am a resident of Independence, a proud Blue Devil alumni, and current student at The Ohio State University. I'm writing to you in order to present my input on the planned development of land parcel north of Rockside Road. While I recognize the need for economic development to avoid stagnation, I believe there are several social, economic, and environmental factors that cast a reasonable doubt on the viability of converting currently undeveloped land. First reason is obvious impact of traffic increases on the residents of Independence. Already, the traffic swell around the rush hour is significant near the corridor on both Rockside Road and the two major highways in that area. The residents who commute to other cities for work mainly use one of these three transportation venues. The development plan would require an increase in streetlights and parking that would in turn multiply congestion. Increasing the width of local byways will not alleviate this issue. The economic principle of induced demand reveals that this strategy counterintuitively increases traffic congestion in the long term. It would be possible to utilize local mixed residential areas instead to decrease the traffic issue. However, the introduction of apartments or condominiums to Independence would have an effect on the town. Residents of these types of housing opportunities tend to be single-person households, empty nesters, or people who are not willing to make investments on owning a house. While renters do not pay property taxes directly, changes in property tax can lead to increases in rent. As a result, all these groups are more likely to vote against levies for the local schools, a point of pride for Independence. Looking at nearby communities, we can easily tell that the failure to properly fund the local school district results in a positive feedback loop of falling property values and decreasing tax revenue. Finally, there's an environmental aspect. The land in question surrounds the West Creek, an important tributary along the final stretch of the Cuyahoga River. In the past, the Cuyahoga was one of the most heavily polluted waterways in America, if not the world. During the last 40 years, however, massive inroads have been made to correct this, and the local ecosystem has rebounded greatly. This is a joint effort between all the communities in Northeast Ohio who have worked together to both decrease pollution and to protect natural buffer zones around the river and its tributaries. Just a few years back, Palmer played a part in establishing the West Creek Reservation to protect the very same stream. The development plan, of course, allows for protection of wetlands around the creek as a buffer zone. However, such a small area is sufficient only in legal terms. The proposed development would cleave existing woodlands, would serve to prevent pollution entering the stream, and would additionally multiply the sources of runoff pollution due to the massive influx of cement and pavement over the previously forested lands. Furthermore, the woodlands serve as a barrier to another type of environmental degradation. It absorbs massive amount of noise and light pollution from I-480, ecologically, loss in natural vegetation, an increase in non-point pollution, and massive runoff of greatly damaged rivers, so many have worked. In conclusion, I hope you are able to recognize the areas of concern brought in this letter. This development project has been a real environmental, social, and economic risk to not only the city of Independence, but the entire local area. I urge you to take into account the voices of the many voters and residents of Independence who find this issue with the current plan. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm John Marcus Newski. I live on 6703 Ivandale Road, and I am representing a former Bible Society member and IHS alumni. To whom it may concern, as a resident of the city, I am always interested in issues that seek to improve our city for residents and visitors, which is why the plans to develop the Rockside area intrigue me. However, upon reading the report and plan for the development prepared by the city, I must say that I was disturbed by what I read. The plan mentioned that the proposed building area often has visible wildlife and a wetland, but there was nowhere in the report that mentioned environmental concerns. I find it highly irresponsible of the city to propose a massive development plan in a wild area without proposing an environmental study to determine the environmental significance of the area. This area could hold much intrinsic environmental value, such as being an important habitat for local populations, being a stopover spot for migratory species, preventing erosion, groundwater filtration and mitigation, excessive precipitation, and floodwaters, among others. Wetlands, seasonal and permanent especially, are critical to the survival and success of countless native Ohio amphibians, many of which are rare to begin with. Amphibians worldwide are declining for a variety of reasons, including habitat fragmentation from wetlands being removed and destroyed. Destroying this wetland would only exacerbate this problem in our community. Additionally, disturbing the tributary to the West Creek could have unknown consequences. Further down the watershed, causing unnecessary disturbances to communities who may value and benefit from the watershed. Proceeding without fully investigating the environmental ramifications would, quite bluntly, be asinine. This letter is not to suggest that the land should remain completely untouched. I obviously do not object the proposed improvements of the already developed areas. The wooded areas and wetlands could certainly have much potential as a reservation or nature center if trails were added. At the very least, the natural parts of the Rockside area deserve a proper environmental evaluation and assessment to determine exactly what we will lose and what may occur environmentally by destroying these areas for construction purposes. Sincerely, a concerned citizen.
Steve Elbach, NOBAK, 6903 Grandview Drive. I would like to yield my 3 minutes and have them added to Mr. Zaborski.
With all due respect, this isn't Congress.
No.
Yeah, just, it's pretty, you
I-
signed up to speak.
Pardon?
You signed up to speak.
Yeah, I did, because I
So
want
if
to
you
yield
want
to
to speak with all due
Zaborski.
respect, then you're.
I would like Mr. Zaborski to have
Well.
6 minutes. Thank you.
Mary Jane Harden.
I will wait until he's done.
Mary Jane Harden. I mean, come on.
Hello, I'm Mary Jane Horton. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Because I can't see back here. Because I, Okay, hi, I'm Mary Jane Horton, and before I live at 50, yes, correct?
Address.
Oh, it says I live at 5750 Chestnut Road. And before this meeting, I researched the council rules for public hearings. And I understand from this that the council shall first hold a public hearing thereon, at which any interested person may be heard in respect thereto. No time limit is mentioned here, and there is nothing about sticking to any particular topic. I applaud our young people. I am so... Thank you, Daniel Gitto, for telling me about saving the trees, because I was so myopic in my view. I was only looking at rental property. I wasn't looking at what really matters for them and their generation. And I thank Daniel so much. And I am embarrassed that we did not see this ourselves. Thank God our children were able to tell us.
My name is Dan Ginto. I live on 5905 Chestnut Road. I'm a lifelong resident of Independence, Ohio. I'm currently an environmental science and biology major at Cleveland State University. In the past few weeks, I've met with or talked on the phone with many of you to discuss my concerns with the Rockside Road development plans. The plans concern me both as a resident and a dedicated environmentalist. Growing up in Independence, I always loved playing and adventuring in the streams and woods, crawling in the mud with the bugs, amphibians, and snakes. In high school, through Independence's unique outdoor education center, the Land Lab, I learned more about the incredible importance and complexity of the natural world than I ever could in a traditional classroom or anywhere else for that matter. Yet these natural lands are constantly disappearing and the rivers are flowing with deadly chemicals due to overdevelopment and lack of concern or respect for the natural world. We're proposing further development of as little as 70 acres and as much as 551 acres of woodlands, grasslands, and wetlands. We as a city are taking a major step backwards. The environment is at a dire tipping point, facing destruction of waterways from combined sewer overflows, an increase in impervious surface areas leading to extreme runoff issues. Furthermore, within those 70 acres are thousands of trees and plants, each of which are about 48 to 50% carbon. By clearing these lands, we are releasing mass amounts of carbon into an already unstable environment, furthering the amounts of anthropogenic greenhouse gases and further accelerating man-made climate change. This incredible impact is not just a local concern, but a regional and global concern that is having serious impacts on many endangered species, driving us towards a sixth mass extinction as well as destroying landscapes and ruining people's lives worldwide. For as John Muir once said, when one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it is attached to the rest of the world, and Independence is no exception. One other major impact of such deforestation and development is the lowering of biodiversity in the area, which E.O. Wilson has shown us lowers the stability of the system and further pushes us towards an ecological tipping point. The displacement of wildlife like deer, raccoons, and ticks into the city can cause property damage, car accidents, and the spreading of Lyme disease. Also, Rockside Road is within the natural range of the federally endangered Masago rattlesnake, which is rapidly facing extinction because of mass development problems such as this one. I strongly urge that this land is not developed, but rather used for outdoor education for both our community and neighboring communities. If any time or money going towards this project be used towards limiting the already major environmental impacts we are having on our waterways and wildlife. However, if you are still considering development, it is a must that local biologists, ecologists, hydrologists, geologists, botanists, and environmental scientists from surrounding universities and schools or organizations like the Cleveland Metro Parks and the National Parks are brought in to do extensive environmental impact studies to get a purely objective, scientific point of view on the major impacts that this will have for the people of this great city have the right to know these impacts. As well as all the surrounding cities such as Cuyahoga Heights, Valley View, Brooklyn Heights, Seven Hills, and all other communities downstream from us should be consulted and made aware of the detrimental effects of the development on their environments and communities. Independence is also in close proximity to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, so we must also consider the major impact of 70 acres of development can have on this one-of-a-kind park. As you can see from the presence of the Biology Society and Mr. Moretka, I'm not the only one who feels this way. My generation is one of growing environmental awareness and appreciation, and we will not sit by and watch as the world dies. So in closing, I would like to do two things. One, in true John Muir fashion, I would like to personally invite all the council members and neighbors to join me on an adventure through this property, so together we can truly witness and appreciate nature's many wonders. Secondly, I would like to share with you a poem from Drew Dillinger. It is 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake, because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do when the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals, reptiles, and birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? Thank you all for your time.
Chris Lamborski, 6343 Walrod Place. I have two very different opinions on each of these properties.
Talk a little louder, Chris.
I have two very different opinions on each of these properties. For the downtown area, I believe that it should be managed by occupancy in order to not over-congest or create the traffic issues that would come if there was not some kind of occupancy limits put in place by council to reverse engineer what they're building there. As far as the Rockside property, and the council voted 7-0 on this, I believe it was a highly speculative purchase based on the audience competitors. The city invested $3 million plus in that land with little or no support from what I'm seeing from this audience. Under Ohio Revised Code 135, municipalities can't even invest in the most conservative mutual funds with their money. We're throwing millions of dollars away on land speculation, or at land speculation. And I hope a lesson is learned here tonight by the people that made those decisions. There's not one person who stood up against this on council. That's pretty much all I have to say tonight. I hope this is a learning experience. I thank the mayor and council for letting everybody speak and for all the people that came here to participate.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Steve Lidwinski, 32595 Winter property owner on West Creek Road. I'll keep it brief this afternoon, this evening. Sent a letter to all the council members outlining our concerns. And we'll leave it at that. I'm sure we all read it and took it under advisement. I'd like a point of clarification. I understand that there's some modification in terms of what areas be considered for planned unit development, and wondered if Jeremy could outline the new area.
We outlined it.
Well, we did it very quickly, and I'd like to see it one more time if I could, please.
We'll talk to you after. We'll show it to you after.
I'm Troy Nemeth, 7004 Rexville Road, and I'm a current student at John Carroll University. I just graduated from Independence High School this past May. I want to come down to show my support I'm here in attendance in place of Alex Carcel, who is a current Independence resident and also an Independence High School alumni and alum, and he is working currently on his undergraduate biology major at The Ohio State University. Throughout this blueprint plan for developing land in the Rockside Plaza, the neighboring areas, in my inquiry of the plan, I find it that there is an obvious disregard for the sanctity and equitable treatment for the surrounding environment and present wildlife. Regarding the character assessment and regional commerce, the comprehensive plan mentions in the character assessment that there is a natural contrast unique to the business park referencing the surrounding environment. I find it paradoxical and disparaging that this plan would even help to recognize this attribute of the business park if the end game is to develop over it. I also have issue with the point made in that it would increase regional competition. The City of Independence, in its expansion and modernization of the business park, has controlled the market in all of Northeast Ohio for decades without equivocation. Cleveland would be the only other considerable competing regional market that has been making a resurgence in the past decade, but negligent to compare to the mecca that has become the Rockside Plaza. So, the statement concerning increasing regional competition is redundant and misleading by proclaiming that competition among suburban communities, especially with Cleveland, is a justified reason to develop more of the limited range of the natural environment still available, when in fact Rockside Plaza still maintains control, a significant part of the commerce in Northeast Ohio. Now, regarding the creation of a small park system. To be blunt, the creation of a small park in lieu of destroying 70 acres of wildlife is asinine. The proposed connection trail with the West Park confluence is a little more than a disrespectful affront. It is an offensive rationalization to those of the confluence. How could an interlinking trail justify the destruction of valuable parts of investigated, protected, and observed environment? Who would enjoy hiking on a pathway that explores the modern scenery of a newly constructed office complex instead of the natural environment of Northeast Ohio? Much to my chagrin, I find an insignificant amount of comprehensive explanation for the sustainability of natural resources, environment, and wildlife in the area. This plan has subsequently ignored the environmental and moral concerns of developing this land, an evident negligence in planning or even addressing the concerns of a sustainable integrated workplace is noted. As structured and detailed as this proposition is, it lacks a reassuring validity that those who operated with so much care in detailing this plan also designed a plan around not only an expansion of capital, but also a system of protection and scrupulous consideration that is the environmental impact of this approach.
Thank you. Just by way of comment, since we've adjourned the public hearing, I'd like to just point out a couple of things. Thank you. I want to thank all those who took the time to speak. I want to thank the young people here, those students that took the time. I particularly want to single out those that took the time to prepare their own comments. It's tough to come up here and speak in front of the public eye. So I really think it's commendable for all of you that took the time to speak, particularly those that took the time to prepare their own thoughts and comments. To me, that's a goal for everyone. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I have a couple things. One more thing. Was reference been made by, what was it? Kenny Conway. I can't remember who you were speaking for, Kenny. I have the minutes here, but there was reference made to the Cuyahoga Valley and Stone Road area and the West Creek area. And just by way of information, does anyone know how much land the National Park consumed of the City of Independence when they came and started occupying land within the city? I don't expect you to have the answer, but if someone really wanted to impress me, I would say, by golly, you're on your game. Any idea? What percentage of all the land in the city of Independence we control, how much of it was absorbed by the national park? That's a good start. I hear 15%. Actually, it's close to 21%. 21% of all the acreage in the city of Independence was locked down permanently by the federal government for the national park. Now, there aren't many communities in the greater Cleveland area that can speak to that amount of property being permanently locked down as a national park. I'm sorry? You can comment?
Did you say was? Is it still that
Oh, yeah,
percentage?
once the federal government gets it, it's pretty much locked down. So, 21% of all the acreage is now owned by the National Park Service, okay? Which, like I said, that's a lot of acreage for a community to give up potential development or further use. Now, we own several hundreds of acres, the city of Independence. And for those that weren't here at the beginning, I just want to share with you the comments that were made by the Economic Development Director. The two areas that we're talking about, some of you went to school, well, no, I don't think any of you went to school at the middle school, the old middle school. Maybe.
Yes.
Did you? Nah, you were here before Methuselah. What I'm trying to say is that's all open property. Some of you played football there. Some of you played baseball there. There's a school building there. There aren't a lot of trees there. And with respect to the 35 acres or 33 acres the city bought, if you drive down there, and Daniel, we'll look at that situation, but I think if you look at the map, and I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if you were here, that was all excavated, and the entire topography was changed when the interchange for I-480 was in. So there is no original growth in any of that property. Now, to the east of that, the gully area, the West Creek Gully, that's beautiful. If you ever walk it, it's beautiful. But just make sure that I want everyone to understand that the acreage you're talking about tonight, it's all been, the trees are all gone to speak of, okay? This was done before you were born, many of you, not before I was born, but certainly not before Pat was born. But just by way of comment, so 21% is now federally protected government land. We are very sensitive to all the property that we own, the city of Independence. And in terms of the West Creek area, we work very closely with the West Creek Preservation, very closely with them. And I don't know of many initiatives that we have taken over the past 20, 30 years that I've been around that we haven't been very sensitive to the environmental concerns. And we're still working at, you heard the engineer earlier speak of all the different things we have to go through, different organizations, companies we have to employ to protect the environment, environmental issues. So just make sure that I really appreciate taking the time, especially those that took the time to craft their own comments. I applaud you all. I thank you and all that took the time for the public comments. With that, thank you very much.